Good afternoon, folks. Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilly here with your tropical update. It is June 10th of 2019. Of course, tropical update brought to you by good folks at Pine Belt Gutters. Big ups to them for helping us out with putting these together for everyone. I wanted to go over something real quick because I've heard from a lot of folks this year that are very excited that it's an average or maybe semi-below average year for hurricane season. They saw the predictions, average 12.63. NOAA saying 9 to 15, just about average. 4 to 8, okay, just about average. 2 to 4, okay, just about average. Colorado coming in with maybe an extra named storm, but maybe below average hurricanes and below average major hurricanes. And that's great, right? We're really excited that it's going to be about average out there. In general, and it's okay to feel that way. But I wanted to point something out, that this is for the entire Atlantic basin. A lot of folks have heard about El Nino maybe keeping stuff in the Atlantic reasonably at bay. Again, for the Atlantic. Unfortunately, most of the stuff we have to deal with around here comes from the Gulf of Mexico, which, yes, is a part of the entire Atlantic basin. However, if, we can go back here, if, say, for example, the NOAA forecast is bang on, say we have a completely average season, 12.63, that's what we end up with, but all 12.6 and 3 of those bad boys are in the Gulf of Mexico, we got problems. And I'll say that, yes, it's good that it's about average, and yes, El Nino does help with some extra wind shear in the Caribbean and out into the Atlantic basin, but it doesn't do diddly squat for the Gulf of Mexico, unfortunately, which means that it is kind of a fair game, I guess you could call it. Last year, this year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, for stuff in the Gulf of Mexico, it's really on a shorter time scale that we have to watch stuff happening closer to home. Speaking of shorter timescales, what's happening out there right now? Well, we can slide this thing off to the north. We've actually got a front that's moving through the southeast. That's doing a good job to kick out a lot of stuff, but you can see we've got a little swirl just off the coast of Florida. Now, you've been watching these tropical updates every day. We talk about the origins. We talk about stuff just kind of in the elbow of Florida here, where the peninsula goes in to the panhandle. Kind of right in here. Well, the reason why is because we get these late season fronts, and kind of the tail end of the front ends up down here, and yeah, you end up with stuff that kind of, you can see in the last couple of frames here, starts to kind of spin around a little bit. Well, we don't anticipate anything to happen out of that little spinny as of right now, but it bears watching for the next couple of days. You can see the eruption of convection out across parts of Texas as well. Zooming it back out and looking at the Atlantic basin, you can see a fair amount of shear. We've got a lot of clouds moving from west to east out here, and usually we talk about the westerlies. It's stuff moving from east to west, and we've got some of that down near the coast of Africa. A lot of this stuff is squashed a little further off to the south than it usually is, but all the convection starting to come off the coast of Africa. In fact, we've got a little bit down here that's still trying to hold on. That's pretty far from the coast of Africa. A lot of times this time of the year, it's just not warm enough. The water temperatures aren't quite warm enough out here to sustain any tropical waves coming off the coast of Africa to hold together. Now, we also have a lot of shear out here, and this is just wind in the mid and upper levels. It just peels the tops right off of any of the clouds that are out there. So a little too early to look out here, but this is generally what we look for. But right now, thank goodness, a little too early in the season. Back to the 700 millibar moisture 850 vorticity map, my favorite map. Grayed out areas, we're not worried about those. We've got dry air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. Where we don't, what we look for is these little, green, yellow, and orange dots that show up on the map. That's low level 850 millibar, low level vorticity or spin. Moisture at 700 millibars, it's mid-level. How much moisture do we have? Do we have some? Well, that's in the clear. We have none. That's nice and grayed out. Where there's none, that means it's dry. You probably don't have thunderstorms there. You need water to have thunderstorms. As we head through Wednesday, we got a bunch of dry air moving into the Caribbean. And in fact, this kind of holds true mainly through most of the week and into next weekend. And we get another little batch of some dry air out here that scoots across the Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico. So even that little spinny that was out here that I was talking about, don't anticipate much out of that. And then the dry air really fills in as we head through kind of the end of next week and toward the end of June, as we get out of the phase of the MJO that is a little more favorable for development for stuff a little closer to home. So there's your tropical update. Thanks to good folks at Pine Belt Gutters for that for June 10th of 2019. Consider yourself tropically updated.